Hello everyone, welcome to our presentation for Chapter 13, The Strategy of International Business. I am Farah Adiba and we are from Group 3. In this chapter, we will discuss how companies develop and implement strategies to compete effectively in the global market. Next, I'll show you guys my group members. Discussion 1. In a world of zero transportation costs, no trade barriers, and significant differences between nations with regard to factor conditions, firms must expand internationally if they are to survive. Discuss. This question imagines a world with three major assumptions. First, there are no transportation costs, there are no trade barriers, and countries still differ significantly in their resource conditions. In such a situation, global markets become fully open and companies must consider how to stay competitive. From the perspective of comparative advantage, countries will specialize in what they can produce more efficiently. A nation with abundant land may dominate agriculture, while a nation with highly educated labor may specialize in technology. Firms that operate internationally can take advantage of these differences by placing production where factor conditions are most favorable. If they do not, they may face higher costs compared to the competitors that globalize. The second argument concerns economies of scale. If there are no transportation costs, a firm can produce in one optimal location and serve the entire world market without any logistical penalty. As output increases, the cost per unit falls, which improves pricing power and competitiveness. Industries like automotive manufacturing would benefit greatly because high volume production reduces cost dramatically. Firms that stay domestic may not achieve these cost savings. The third argument relates to market diversification. Expanding internationally means a company is not dependent on one national economy. If demand in the home market declines due to recession or political disruptions, sales in other countries can stabilize revenue. This reduces business risks and increases long-term resilience. However, it is also fair to conclude that international expansion is not the only possible survival strategy. Firms can still succeed by serving highly specialized niche markets, by offering unique products, or by building strong customer loyalty. Therefore, expanding globally is a powerful strategic opportunity in such a world, but it does not automatically become the only route to survival. Firms must still consider their internal strength and long-term objective before pursuing global operations.
Hello everyone, my name is Muhammad Rafi Aditya and I'm here going to present about discussion 2. So the question is the plot position of the following firms on figure 13.6 Procter& and Gamble, IBM, Apple, Coca-Cola, Dow Chemical, Intel, and McDonald's. In each case, justify your answer. So first of all, we are gonna talk about the global one. So in global, we have Intel, Dow Chemical, and Apple. So these are the companies that into figure 13.6. Yeah, and we have Intel, Dow Chemical, and Apple. We place them in the global segment because these firms face immense pressure to lower costs, but low pressure to adapt to local tastes. And an Intel processor is the same in Tokyo as is it in Europe because their strategy is to mass produce standardized products to maximize efficiency. And next, we have two very different firms that are that are categorized into the two different categories. We place McDonald's in the localization segment because they must adapt to local tastes, like serving vegetarian burgers in India, to succeed, even if it costs more. Conversely, we placed Procter and Gamble in the US and sold them globally with little change, leveraging their powerful brand names without needing to slash the price or heavily adapt to the country. Finally, we have the most complex segment, which is transnational. We place Coca-Cola and IBM here. Coca-Cola must be cheap enough to compete with local sodas, but tasty enough to match local preference. They must be big and local at the same time. This concludes our analysis of grid. Most firms are slowly migrating toward this difficult transnational so that they can serve.
Discussion 3. In what kind of industry does a localization strategy make sense? When does a global standardization strategy make the most sense? The choice between a localization strategy and a global standardization strategy depends on the nature of the industry and the type of pressure firms face in the international markets. A localization strategy makes sense in industry where customer preferences, culture, and regulation differ significantly across countries. In this industry, firms face high pressure to adapt to local conditions. For example, food and beverage companies must adjust flavors, ingredients, and certification requirements such as halal standards. Fast-moving consumer goods require locally appropriate packaging and advertising. Media and entertainment must match language, humor, and cultural norms. In these cases, success depends on local acceptance, so firms must tailor their products and marketing strategy to each market. In contrast, a global standardization strategy is appropriate in industry where customer needs are relatively similar across countries and where cost efficiency is critical. Firms in industries such as electronic, semiconductors, and industrial machinery compete mainly on price, performance, and reliability rather than cultural differences. By offering the same product worldwide, firms can achieve economies of scale, spread research and development costs across large markets, and maintain consistent quality. Luxury brands also use standardization to protect their global brand image and identity. In summary, localization strategies are suitable when differences between countries strongly influence demand, while global standardization strategies are suitable when efficiency, cost reduction, and technological performance dominate competition. The optimal strategy depends on whether local responsiveness or global efficiency is more important in a particular industry.
Hello everyone. Now moving to the management focus summaries. We start with the AB in BEF, found on page 382. They exemplify the global standardization strategy. They acquire local breweries and ruthlessly streamline them into their global supply chain. This allows them to achieve massive economy scale, lowering costs while keeping the local brand names that customers trust. And next, we have IKEA. And originally, IKEA tried to sell the same Swedish furniture everywhere, but they learned a hard lesson in the US and China. One size does not fit all. They had to adapt bed size and designs to fit local homes. This represents a shift from a pure global strategy to a transnational one, balancing their famous low cost with necessary local adaptation. And finally, we look at Unilever. Historically, Unilever allowed its local subsidiaries total freedom, a classic localization strategy. However, to compete today, they have to tighten the control and centralize operations to save money. Their journey shows difficult of moving toward a transnational strategy, trying to gain a global efficiency without killing the local agility that made them successful.
Hello everyone, I'm Jananie here. So now let's move on to the next question, which is AB InBev has more than 200 brands worldwide. So does the company have many brands? Explain why and why not. So to answer this question, AB InBev may have over 200 beer brands, but this does not mean the company has too many brands. Instead, it reflects a deliberate and highly strategic global approach. AB InBev uses a clear brand architecture where each category play a specific role. Global brands like Budweiser, Corona, and Stella Artois drive the worldwide growth and premium positioning. International brands such as the Hugaden and Lefi target the cross-border niche market, while the local champion brand like Jupiler, Harbin and Kulmes dominate their home market by meeting their strong local preferences. Importantly, AB InBev follow a focused brand strategy, meaning that although it owns many brands, most of its resources are concentrated on those with the greatest long-term growth potential, while the local champions provide a stable cash flow to support the investment in the local global brand. So this wide portfolio also strengthens the market penetration and competitive defense, as the strong local brand act as a barriers to entry for the competitors and allow AB InBev to leverage existing distribution network and customer loyalty across more than 100 countries. So despite this complexity, AB InBev maintained its efficiency through strong financial discipline, industry-leading margins, and an unfight management structure supported by Dream People Culture philosophy, which ensure that the company operates as one global organization with shared value. Finally, having a large and diverse brand portfolio allow AB InBev to spread the risk across the market and consumer segment while also supporting the organic growth and value enhancing the acquisition. Therefore, AB InBev does not have too many brands, rather its extensive portfolio is a key strategy asset that drive the global reach, local relevance and long-term value creation. So that's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter.
Now, let's take a look at question 4b. The company follow a focused brand strategy in which the majority of the resources are devoted to those brands and that have the greatest long-term growth potential. What positive and negative do you see with this approach? Starting with the positives, focusing on a few global icons like Budweiser, Corona and Stella Artois allow AB InBev to achieve massive economies of scale and resource efficiency. Research by Zayat and Matsek suggests that this concentration drives higher return on investment and strengthen brand equity. In 2015 alone, this strategy helped their 3 global brands grow by 12.6%. Furthermore, in a competitive industry, this market power creates high barrier to entry, reinforcing AB InBev's leadership position. However, there are risks. The most prominent negative is reduced agility. By over-focusing on global brands, the company might be slower to react to local trends. There is also risk of brand dilution. If the company pushes a global brand into a new category that it doesn't fit, it can damage the parent brand's reputation. Finally, neglecting smaller brands or local champion could leave gaps in the market for the competitors to exploit. Moving on to question 4c. Strategically, AB InBev have 10 principles driving everything they do. They also have additional principles covering people strength, quality of teams, striving for increased satisfaction, and much more. Should a large multinational corporation really be built on a strong principle, or do they need a flexible structure? There is a strong case for principles. For a company with 155,000 employees across 100 countries, these values act as a global compass. Research by Graham and others show that a strong corporate culture is a top driver of firm value, innovation, and productivity. By fostering a sense of ownership, AB InBev reduces the need for complex bureaucracy, ensuring everyone works in the same direction. On the other hand, research on transnational organization by Bartlett and Ghoshal argued that the most successful firm must combine global principle with local flexibility. If principles are too rigid and clash with local culture, performance can actually suffer. AB InBev balances this with using 6-zone president who can adapt strategies to regional need, ensuring that the company remain responsive while maintaining global strategic alignment.
So now let's move on to the question 5, which is what do you see as the main organizational problem that are likely to be associated with the implementation of a transnational strategy? So guys, imagine what would happen when a company tries to be global, regional and local all at the same time. This is the central challenges of the transnational strategy. While it promises both global efficiency and local responsiveness, it often creates a several structural complexity. Like most of the transnational firms, they rely on matrix structure where the employee report to the multiple manager across the different level. So instead of a clear clarity, this leads to confusion and also delays, and also it could be create an organizational gridlock. So decision making might be become very slow and political as a global, regional, and local manager. They are going to be compete for the control and turning the strategy into negotiation rather than the execution. So beyond this structure, the success of transnational strategy depend heavily on exceptional managerial talent. So these organizations require rare transnational manager who can think globally, act locally, and also manage the cultural tension simultaneously. So such managers are very difficult, isn't it, to be developed and also even very hard to retain them. So the constant pressure to balance competing priorities often result in high burnouts, talent shortages, and also inconsistent execution. It could be cause the strategy goals to break down at the operational level. Finally, the coordination is also become the hidden cost that threaten the performance. To keep everything aligned, transnational company create a dense network of cross-border teams, committees, and task forces. While the coordination is essential, it consumes a significant amount of the time and resources, shifting the focus away from the innovation and also the execution. So in conclusion, while a transnational strategy sounds ideal for many companies, but it could be also is organizational can create an organizational problem like complicity, managerial strain, and high coordination costs can seriously undermine the performance if not carefully managed. So that's all for me. I will pass to the next presenter.
So let's begin with a summary of the case Geely Holdings. Geely began as a refrigerator maker in 1986 and entered the auto industry in 1997. So later becoming a major Chinese private car manufacturer. So this established Geely humble and non-automotive origins and its rapid rise to become a major player in the Chinese market. After initial reliance on foreign design, founder Li Shuo pursued his ambition to acquire Volvo, his favorite brand. It highlights Li Shuo's long-term vision and taste, showing the Volvo acquisition was not opportune impulse but an intentional target. Geely purchased Volvo from Ford in 2010 for 1.8 billion, marking a landmark Chinese overseas auto acquisition. So the major successfully combined Volvo brand and engineering with Geely manufacturing scale. So this addresses the initial doubters by explaining the core logic of the deal success, a complementary fit between Western technology and also the Chinese manufacturing efficiency and market access. So production expanded globally, post acquisitions with the new plants in China and the United States building Volvos for international markets. It shows the tangible outcome of the synergy. Volvo transformed from a Europe-centric manufacturer into a truly global brand. Then, cultural differences emerges, such as disagreement over backseat design priority between Chinese and Swedish perspective. China has since become a Volvo's largest market, valued for its safety and luxury, with the brand aiming to build a death-proof car. It reveals how the equation fundamentally changed Volvo market dynamic, making China its core. Volvo global sales broke records after the acquisition, with strong growth in both China and the US. So the sentence validated the entire strategy with hard data, showing record growth and the specific market reversal where China overtook the US as Volvo's largest market. While managing separately, Geely announced plan in 2020 to fully integrate and list the combined entity. So this indicates that the successful partnership is moving from loosely held separate structure to a fully merged entity to deepen integration and unlock the further value. Then, strengthened by the Volvo success, Geely expanded its global portfolio with strategic stakes in Lotus, Proton, Volvo Group, and Daimler. So it demonstrated that the Volvo case became a blueprint for Geely, which is now using its expertise and capital to build a global automotive. So let's begin with the case study one. Which of the strategy described in this chapter is Geely pursuing with Volvo? So how might this strategy create value for Geely, enabling it to make a positive return on investment in Volvo? So my answer is transnational strategy. A transnational strategy is a comprehensive approach to competing in the global marketplace where a firm seeks to achieve both global efficiency and local responsive at once. So the first one is a pressures for cost reduction. Geely achieved this by integrating Volvo into the global manufacturing web by building a new plants in China and using Geely established logistic and supply base. So they significantly lower production costs. So the South Korea plant also contributes to the location economics by reducing trade risk and also the cost for the US market. By the other hand, pressures for local responsive. Geely deeply adapted Volvo offering for the Chinese market, for example, redesigning back seats for chauffeur driver owners. So while allowing the brand to retain its core Swedish identity and global safety appeal. So this shows delegation and customization to meet the local tastes. So how this strategy creates value for Geely? First one is using location economics and creating a global web. So Geely puts each part of Volvo work where it makes the most sense. So they keep the important job designing and engineering the cars in Sweden because that's what makes a Volvo special and high quality. And also they build the cars in places like China, so where it costs less to manufacture. So the smart placement around the world lowers the total cost of making each car. Second one is sustaining product differentiation while lowering the cost base. Geely's plan to lets Volvo keep its famous reputation for safety, quality, and luxury, so people are still willing to pay a good price for that. But behind the scenes, Geely uses its big efficient factories and supply chains to build Volvos for less money. So the bigger difference between the selling price and the lower cost means more profit on each car. Third one is a facilitating two-way innovation and using subsidiary skills. So the two company learn from each other. So Volvo team in Sweden invents new safety and self-driving technology for all market. So Geely's team in China shares local knowledge like what futures customer they want. These good ideas from both sides are shared to make a better cars everywhere, which is an advantage competitors don't have.
Our presentation on case study 2. What are the risks associated with Geely's strategy for Volvo, and how might internal company factors and macro environmental changes impact Geely's ability to maximize its return on investment? What should Geely do to mitigate such risks? First, there are several key risks associated with Geely's strategy for Volvos. One major risk is culture and organizational differences. Geely and Volvo have very different management styles, decision-making processes, and labor values. This may create coordination challenges between the two companies. Another risk is integration failure, especially in technology and platform sharing. There is also a risk of brand dilution, which could work in Volvo's premium and safety-focused image. This risk becomes even greater during global economic downturns. Key internal factors include R&D and innovation speed, global brand management, and long-term investment sustainability. And then, key macro factors include European regulatory pressure, economic uncertainty, and intensifying EV competition. These factors directly impact cost control, brand production, and return on investment. To mitigate these risks, Chile should maintain Volvo's management autonomy to protect its brand identity and corporate culture. Chile should adopt a gradual integration approach to avoid sudden organizational and structural changes. In addition, technology should be shared with Volvo while keeping the two brand identity clearly separate. Chile can also diversify its global investments to reduce exposure to external and regional risks. Finally, focusing on electric vehicles and environmentally friendly technologies can strengthen long-term competitiveness. Next, our presentation on case study 3. In 2017, Geely doubled down on its international expansion with its acquisition of Lotus, a manufacturer of luxury sports cars. And then, what strategy do you expect Geely to pursue with Lotus? Does this strategy make sense? For Lotus, I expect Geely to pursue a transnational strategy. Under this strategy, Geely maintains Lotus brand independence while providing global resources and financial support. This allows Lotus to preserve its British heritage and luxury sports car image. At the same time, Geely can share technology, especially in electric vehicles. As often said, the brand is British while the ownership is Chinese, similar to Volvo. Therefore, this strategy makes sense as it preserves brand identity while leveraging global resources. This strategy makes sense for several key reasons. First, it strengthens Geely's premium brand portfolio by adding Lotus. Second, Geely can achieve technological and cost synergies through shared platforms and technologies. In addition, this approach helps preserve Lotus's brand identity, which is critical in the luxury segment. However, the luxury sports car market is niche, with limited demands and long payback periods. Overall, the strategy is sound, but it remains a high-risk, long-term approach. These are our reference materials. Thank you very much for your attention. We would be happy to ask any questions, so please feel free to ask or leave your question in the comments. Thank you very much.